To come in and talk a little bit about how we show up for ourselves. I think it's an incredibly important topic that we don't spend enough time on, purely because most of us are thinking about the things that we want to do in our lives and not actually taking action on the things that we want to do in our lives. And so I know that for most of us, today is a holiday. So if you're catching this on the recording, thank you so much for still showing up for yourself. And I also want to say that even though today is a holiday, showing up for ourselves means sometimes creating things within our lives, consistencies, congruencies. And so this is also me demonstrating that for myself and for you. And so I wanted to come live and talk about, because tomorrow I have a podcast coming out on a very similar topic, which is how we show up and the decisions that we make in our lives that determine our goals, the output of our goals. And so it's so incredibly important when we're thinking about what kind of thought leadership that we want to create for ourselves. How do we want to show up in a greater and bigger way within our lives, within our careers, within our corporations, within the industry? Is creating systems and processes and ways that we can start to approach how we show up. Oftentimes we don't feel like it, right? We don't feel like doing these hard things. Fear creeps in, self-doubt creeps in, imposter syndrome creeps in. And it starts to feel like maybe this is something I shouldn't be trying. Maybe this is a little bit outside of my league here. Maybe I don't have the things that I thought I had in order to create value for someone else. And while everyone feels this way, right? We all feel to a certain extent what makes us different from someone else. And I'm going to tell you, it's you. All of us are unique. None of us have exactly the same recipe that has gotten us to this point in our lives, right? None of us have exactly the same message that we're delivering. We all have unique ways and approaches and thoughts behind what it is that we want to share with the world, what that greater message is, that peace inside of us. And 90% of people don't show up for it. 90% of people don't show up for themselves and follow through on that bigger calling. They take the safe route. They take the one that's more expected of them. They take the one that maybe it looks by looks and judgments, it feels safer. Our mind is going to constantly try to keep us safe. And we have to demonstrate to it, our mind, that by taking the risk, by putting ourselves out there, we are actually furthering the message. We are actually thriving in a greater way, that we are actually bringing more joy and more hope into not only our lives, but into the lives of others. And so when we can take this message and make it bigger than ourselves, then we can show up for ourselves and for others in a greater way. And this was a huge change that I had to make for myself, because it wasn't enough for me. If it was about me only, I wouldn't do it. Humility is a great part of my core values and my upbringing and how I viewed myself. So I struggled for the longest time to even receive a compliment, let alone go out and do something purely for my own benefit. So if you fall within that camp, I want you to think about your message, your purpose, your value, your mission, all of these things, these constructs that come back together in relation to your thought leadership and what it is that you have inside that you would like to share with the world. I would say that more often than not, right, it's not about you. It's about you being the vessel for what it is that you are going to bring and deliver to others, to the industry, something that you have to share and to bring and to teach. So if you can think of it in that way, then it's not about you. It's about how you show up for others. It's how you show up for yourself. It's how you show up for this message We do things every single day that we don't feel like doing. We show up for our job. We show up sometimes for certain family events that we don't always feel like doing, right? We show up and we create dinner, and we show up and we clean our house, and we show up and we go grocery shopping, and we show up and we do the yard work that we don't feel like doing. There's a multitude of ways that we have to enact discipline on a daily basis in order to keep our lives running and operating in homeostasis, right? What is different about that than showing up for yourself in those core areas that are calling out to you and they're living inside of you and wanting to be released? It's not. It's not different. It's the same. Because if you don't show up and do those things for this larger purpose that you have, ask yourself, what happens if you don't show up? What happens if you don't do the thing that's inside that's calling out to you? Does your life remain the same? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you have meaning? How are you thriving? Are you? Ask yourself these questions, because most of the time, 9 times out of 10, when we're not actually following through on that thing that we feel like we probably should do, but fear holds us back, self-doubt holds us back, worry, how good do we really feel about ourselves? Now, sometimes that's our brains equating it to, see, you don't feel good because this thing was too scary. And so now you stayed safe. That's not really what's happening, right? That's not quite the narrative. You have to prove to yourself that when you show up, you feel better. And you have to demonstrate that every single day, because our brain is forming opinions and predictions every single day based upon the actions that you take every single day. So if you're not ever demonstrating that, doing the scary thing, putting yourself out there in a bigger way, maybe falling on your face, maybe not, that you will still be okay, then how will it ever know? How will you ever know? So you have to set yourself up and do it to prove to yourself that you're all right, that you didn't die. I was terrified of putting myself out there on social media the first time, like my first post that wasn't related to like a family event, related to my business. What will my friends think? What will the millions of other people who come across this think? Isn't that where our mind goes? As if I had millions of people even looking at it. It takes time to build up. It takes time. We are competing in a world where everybody has a million different distractions. So the more that you can start now and build up to where you would like to be, the greater advantage you are giving yourself, the greater leadway you are giving yourself to take flight. When you are in a plane, there's a runway before the plane can actually take off. Got very excited there. So you have to give yourself runway to start to take off. You don't always go up like a rocket ship, right? And even then, it has to build momentum. It has to get the ignition, and it's igniting and the fire is coming, right? So that it can shoot off. I'm not in aerospace, so I'm not going to describe that correctly. But in any case, if you think about it that way, you have to give yourself the lead way so that you can start to take flight. Better now than later. Better now. Better to learn now, just like the children, right? Do we want our children to have to learn all of their life lessons when they turn 18, 20, 21, 25? They're going to learn different lessons, but we want them to learn some of the hard lessons earlier too, in some ways, to prevent even worse lessons maybe later. Right? We have to fall sometimes in order to get back up. We have to know what that experience is and looks like and feels like, so that we know how to maneuver in a different way. There is a large degree of trial and error in everything that we do, including our careers. Was everything perfectly stepping forward for you as soon as you got your degree? Or did it require some maneuvering? Did it require some learning? Did you have to pivot? Was it a complete straight line, or did you have to actually meander a little bit? That's life. So what's holding you back from showing up for yourself, showing up for your thought leadership, showing up and delivering that message that you know is inside of you? What's holding you back? Because I can guarantee that if you can prove to yourself that the fear isn't worth it, and that you can actually trump it with hope, and you can survive, then the next time your brain won't be so resistant to you going out and doing it. You are training your mind to think and behave and react differently every single time that you try something new and you didn't die because of it. So I want you to think about that, because we are operating in a state oftentimes where, is this something that's going to kill us? No, it's not. And we have to teach ourselves that. Even though emotionally we might feel a little bit differently, even though emotionally we are scared. But that's the same thing within our jobs. Every time that we had to do our first presentation or show up in a different way or lead our teams. So really get clear on your message, get clear on your why and your purpose, what that is that you want to connect with, so that you can step forward and show up and create systems and patterns for yourself every day that enable you to walk forward into success. I talk about that a little bit in the podcast as well, as what types of systems can you create for yourself? What types of things are effective? And what do we need to do to maintain personal resilience and grit? So really help yourself do the things that you need to do now to propel yourself to where you want to be, where you hope to be. Because if in 10 years from now you haven't accomplished the things that you were hoping to accomplish and set out to do because fear held you back, or for some reason you just didn't feel like it and you just didn't show up for yourself, you're not going to be thriving. You're going to be existing. And is that really what you want? Is to be just existing? Where do you want to see your life taking you? You have the power to create that for yourself. And what's inside of you is powerful. It's purposeful. It's mission driven. Align that for yourself. This is a part of your life. It's a part of your life, just like your family is a part of your life, just like your career is a part of your life. And then this is an extension of that. It's a part of your life. And it's everything that you have learned and gained and grown from that you are delivering in a greater way. Thanks again for joining me today. I'd love to know, where are you at in terms of showing up for yourself in your thought leadership and how you take those steps forward? I'd love to know.